One rainy morning, a grieving widower found a little girl abandoned on a city curb, shivering and silent. He brought her home, expecting only to offer shelter for a night. But over the years, that quiet child would unlock a gift that moved hearts around the world, and in doing so, she would heal his own. He thought he was saving her, but the miracle was just beginning. Please subscribe to our channel. We're building a community where kindness is our most cherished and honored word. The morning rain had tapered off, leaving the streets shimmering with puddles that mirrored the overcast sky. Sunlight strained through dense grey clouds, casting a soft sheen across wet asphalt and the polished surfaces of passing cars. The city was stirring to life. Horns honked faintly, footsteps pattered as commuters hurried along, folding damp umbrellas. Their gazes swept past the small figure huddled by the curb, unnoticed by all but one man, Mr. Henry Caldwell. He was trudging home from the corner market, his navy overcoat buttoned tightly against the autumn chill, a canvas bag brimming with groceries weighing down his shoulder. Henry nearly tripped when he spotted her, a girl, perhaps 6 or 7, curled up beside a weathered street lamp, its paint chipped and rusted. Her pale lavender dress, soaked through, clung to her frail frame like a fragile second skin. Her dark curls were matted against her forehead, dripping with rainwater. Barefoot, without a bag or jacket, she hugged her knees tightly, her cheek pressed against the cold pavement, as if it were the only solace she could find. Henry's breath caught in his throat. Pedestrians wove around her, some casting fleeting, curious glances, but none paused. He set his bag down, his knees creaking as he crouched beside her. "Hey there, little one, can you hear me?" he asked, his voice gentle but firm, cutting through the city's hum. Her eyes fluttered open, deep, expressive eyes that seemed to carry the weight of a lifetime, as if tears had long since hollowed her out. "Are you all right?" Henry asked, his tone steady but laced with concern. She whispered a single word, "cold." That word struck him like a quiet thunderbolt. He shrugged off his coat, draping it carefully over her trembling shoulders. She didn't pull away. When he lifted her into his arms, her small body went limp, her face nestling into his chest as if she'd known him her entire life. Without hesitation, Henry turned toward home, the groceries forgotten for the moment. His small apartment was a warm refuge, cluttered with relics of a quieter life, dog-eared books, faded photographs, and the soft echoes of memories long past. Framed photos of his late wife, Eleanor, and their daughter, lost to illness years ago, adorned the shelves and walls. Henry hadn't raised a child in decades, and the silence in his home had grown heavy, almost oppressive. Yet watching the girl curl up on his worn leather couch, drifting into a soundless sleep, sparked something within him, a flicker of purpose, a warmth he hadn't felt in years. He fetched a soft towel to dry her dripping hair, warmed a bowl of tomato soup, and sat beside her, coaxing her to take small sips. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked, his voice as gentle as a lullaby. "Evelyn," she murmured, her voice fragile, barely above a whisper. "Where are your parents?" Her eyes dropped and she shook her head. "Did someone hurt you?" Silence answered him. That night, she slept on the couch, wrapped in a thick hand-stitched quilt, still clutching Henry's coat like a shield against the world. The next morning, Henry dialed child services, his voice steady but urgent as he recounted finding Evelyn. A social worker named Marissa arrived by noon, her clipboard in hand. She examined Evelyn gently, asking simple questions in a soothing tone, and uploaded her photo to every missing persons database available. The results were empty. No reports, no records, no one searching for her. "She could be undocumented," Marissa said, her voice tinged with resignation, "or abandoned discreetly. It happens more than people realize." Henry's jaw tightened. "What's next for her?" Marissa sighed, flipping through her notes. "Foster homes are overcrowded, and placements take time. But if you're willing, we can expedite temporary guardianship while we investigate further." Henry didn't waver. "I'll take care of her for as long as she needs me." Days melted into weeks. Evelyn spoke little, her words as scarce as morning mist. But she followed Henry everywhere, perching at the kitchen counter. While he brewed his morning coffee, hovering by the door when he stepped out to retrieve the newspaper. Her silence wasn't hollow. It was watchful, as if she were studying the contours of safety, learning its shape. Henry bought her new clothes, a cozy sweater, jeans, sturdy sneakers, and enrolled her in a nearby elementary school, where teachers noted her quiet intelligence. He watched her navigate this new world with caution, her small frame carrying a resilience that humbled him. One evening he found her in the living room, standing before the old upright piano Eleanor had played during their happier years. Evelyn's fingers traced the keys' smooth edges, not daring to press them. "Do you like it?" Henry asked, leaning against the doorframe, a mug of tea in hand. She nodded faintly. "Go on, try it." She hesitated, then pressed a single key, the note ringing softly like a question in the quiet room. The sound was tentative, a lone note, then another, followed by a halting attempt at a scale that stumbled but didn't fall. Yet there was something in her movements, deliberate, almost reverent, that captivated Henry. That night, she returned to the piano, experimenting with pairs of notes, then short sequences, each try bolder than the last. Over the next week, she spent hours there, silent but immersed, her fingers exploring the keys like a map to somewhere new. Henry watched, marveling at her quiet determination. One Sunday morning, as he whisked eggs for breakfast, a sound halted him, a clear, flowing melody that seemed to weave light into the air. He rushed to the living room, a wooden spoon still in hand. Evelyn sat at the piano, eyes closed, her small frame swaying gently as she played "Be Thou My Vision." The notes were raw but achingly beautiful, filling the space with a soulful resonance. "Evelyn," Henry whispered, his voice thick with awe. She stopped abruptly, hands lifting from the keys, her eyes wide with worry. "I heard it at a church once," she said softly, almost apologetically. "I just wanted to try." Henry knelt beside her, his heart swelling. "You didn't just try, Evelyn. That was extraordinary." A shy smile flickered across her face, her first since he'd found her. Over the next few months, Evelyn began to bloom. She hummed softly while working on math homework, sketched delicate landscapes in a notebook Henry had given her, and asked him small questions about his life, his favorite book, the garden he tended on weekends. Her favorite moments were at the piano, late afternoons when sunlight streamed through the lace curtains, bathing the keys in a golden glow. Henry navigated the legal process to become her official foster parent, signing forms with a quiet resolve. At their small community church, tucked in a brick building down the street, Evelyn was invited to play during Sunday services. Her first piece was a simple hymn, "What a Friend We Have in Jesus," but her fingers drew out a depth that hushed the congregation. Some dabbed at their eyes, others bowed their heads in prayer. "She plays with the weight of a soul who's seen too much," the pastor remarked one Sunday, his voice low with reverence. Evelyn didn't know how to respond, so she let her music speak instead. Henry watched her grow, her quiet strength unfurling like a seedling breaking through stone. One chilly evening, Henry returned home with a crumpled flyer. "There's a youth music competition next weekend. Piano division. No entry fee," he said, setting it on the table. Evelyn's eyes widened, a mix of curiosity and fear. "I don't need to win anything," she said, her voice small. "You don't have to win," Henry replied, his tone warm and encouraging. "Just share what's in you." She fidgeted with the hem of her sweater. "What if they don't like it?" He placed a hand on her shoulder, his smile steady. "They'll love it because it's you." The auditorium was vast, its high ceilings echoing with the chatter of proud parents, stern judges and teens in polished attire. Evelyn wore a simple emerald dress and white flats Henry had saved up for, her hair neatly braided. When her name was called, she walked to the stage, her steps slow but resolute. The room fell silent. She sat at the grand piano, closed her eyes, and began to play, not flashy or loud, but deep, each note a thread in a tapestry of sorrow and hope. When she finished, the silence held for a heartbeat, then erupted into applause, a standing ovation that reverberated through the hall. Backstage, Evelyn's hands shook as Henry pulled her into a tight hug. "You were perfect," he said, his voice breaking with pride. A woman approached, her badge catching the stage lights. "Mr. Caldwell, I'm with the Melody Haven Youth Foundation. Evelyn's talent is remarkable. We'd like to offer her a full scholarship, private lessons, mentorship, opportunities to perform nationwide." Henry blinked, his mind reeling. "You're serious?" "She's a once-in-a-lifetime talent," the woman said, her tone earnest. "One in a million." As they left the auditorium, Evelyn glanced across the parking lot and froze. A man stood by a lamppost, watching her, pale, unshaven, his eyes fixed on her with an intensity that chilled her. He didn't clap or smile. He simply stared, then turned and melted into the evening crowd. Henry noticed his heart tightening. "Evelyn, do you know him?" Her face paled, the joy of her performance dimming. She shook her head, but her silence carried a weight Henry couldn't ignore. Her story, he realized, was far from finished. That evening, over a quiet dinner of roasted chicken and mashed potatoes, Henry tried again. "You sure you didn't recognize that man?" Evelyn twisted her fork, her eyes fixed on her plate. "No, but it's like I feel him, like a memory I can't touch." She sat at the piano afterward, but her fingers only hovered, the keys silent for the first time in months. "What if my past finds me?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Henry sat beside her, his presence steady. "If it does, we'll face it together. You're not alone anymore, Evelyn." She leaned into him, her small frame seeking the comfort of his solidity. The scholarship transformed into reality. Evelyn began twice-weekly lessons with a celebrated pianist, who called her a prodigy with a heart that sings. Videos of her church performances spread online, one titled "The Girl Who Played Her Way Home," amassing millions of views. Strangers sent letters, some with gifts, a leather-bound music journal, a delicate bracelet, but Henry kept her life anchored. School, piano, quiet evenings playing chess or tending the small herb garden on their balcony. Evelyn began to laugh more, her voice growing stronger, though shadows lingered in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. One crisp autumn afternoon, a knock broke their routine. Henry opened the door to a woman in her early 40s, her hands trembling as she clutched a small, weathered envelope. "Mr. Caldwell? I'm Dr. Laura Bennett. I think I know Evelyn." Her voice wavered, her eyes searching his face for understanding. Henry's breath caught. "How?" She opened the envelope, revealing a faded photograph of a young girl in a lavender dress, with Evelyn's unmistakable eyes. "She's my niece," Laura said, tears brimming. "She vanished 10 years ago. My brother, her father, was deeply troubled. He took her from her mother and disappeared. We thought they were both gone forever." Henry's hands shook as he held the photo. "You're saying he abandoned her on purpose?" Laura nodded, her voice breaking. "He was arrested last month for forging documents. During questioning, he admitted leaving her on that street. He said she kept crying, and he couldn't cope." Evelyn, overhearing from the hallway, stepped into the room. Her eyes locked on Laura. "Do you remember me, sweetheart?" Laura asked, her voice soft as a prayer. Evelyn's brow furrowed, her fingers tightening around the edge of her sleeve. "You were in a picture. On a shelf. In a house with blue walls." Laura's tears spilled over. "That was my sister's home, your mother's." In the weeks that followed, DNA tests confirmed Laura's story. Evelyn's mother had succumbed to a long illness shortly after her disappearance, leaving Laura to search alone. She'd filed countless missing persons reports, contacted authorities across states, and even hired a private investigator. But the trail had gone cold. Laura shared stories of Evelyn's early years, her mother's lullabies, the way Evelyn used to dance in the living room to radio tunes. Evelyn listened, her memories fragmented but stirring, like pieces of a puzzle slowly coming together. Henry watched her navigate this new truth, his heart aching with both pride and fear of what it might mean. "I don't want to take her from you," Laura told Henry one evening, sitting in his modest living room, a cup of tea untouched in her hands. "You've given her a home, a life, a chance to shine. I just want to be part of her future, if she'll allow it." Henry turned to Evelyn, who sat quietly on the couch, sketching in her notebook. "It's your choice, Evelyn." She looked between them, her gaze steady but thoughtful. After a long pause, she nodded. "You can come to my next concert," she said softly. Laura's face lit up, a tearful smile breaking through. The concert was held in a grand theatre, its chandeliers casting a warm glow over rows of velvet seats. Evelyn, now 15, wore a cream blouse and charcoal trousers, her hair woven into a neat braid. She stepped onto the stage with a quiet confidence, sitting at the grand piano. Her original composition, From Dusk to Dawn, filled the hall, her fingers moving with grace and power, each note a chapter of her journey, loss, hope, and resilience. The audience was spellbound, some leaning forward, others closing their eyes to let the music wash over them. When she finished, the silence was profound, broken by a wave of applause and a standing ovation that shook the rafters. Tears streaked faces in the crowd, reporters, musicians, strangers, all moved by a teenager, whose music carried every wound and every dream. Backstage, Laura embraced Evelyn, her voice trembling.
Your mother would be so proud, sweetheart.
Evelyn smiled, soft but certain. I hope she's listening somewhere. Henry stood nearby, his eyes glistening, his heart full. Months later, Evelyn launched a non-profit, Harmony's Haven, dedicated to providing music education to children without homes. She performed in shelters, community centers, and juvenile detention facilities, her music a bridge to those who felt unseen. She shared her story with quiet strength, standing before crowds with a poise that belied her years. I don't remember much about the day I was left, she told one audience, her voice clear, but I'll never forget the day someone stopped, saw me and gave me a home. Her words drew tears, her music hope. Henry was always there, no longer just her guardian, but her father in every way that mattered. After one performance, as they walked home under a sky scattered with stars, he said, "You know what the real miracle was, Evelyn?" She tilted her head, her braid swaying. "My music?" He shook his head, his smile warm and unwavering. "No, you. You've always been the miracle. If this story touched your heart, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more inspiring, heartfelt tales. Share in the comments where you're watching from. We love connecting with you. Stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.